All right. Are we live?
I think so.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to this virtual open house. My name is Sean Richmond. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Law and Legal Studies here at Carleton. And I'm also the undergraduate supervisor here in our department. With me today, you'll hear from them in a couple minutes, is our amazing chair, Bettina Appel Kuzmarov, and also the amazing Sarah Cleary, our undergraduate administrator. And they're going to share their thoughts on our department and welcome you as well. We're sorry that we can't connect in person on our lovely campus, and it's a beautiful sunny day here in Ottawa. We realize you might all be joining us from different places, but we're still glad that we're able to connect, and we hope we can share some of the highlights of why we think our program is exciting. We know you have different options. You may have questions for us, and we're happy to answer some of them at the end in the Q&A session. You can send your questions in the chat. We'll put them together and then address them at the end. We're planning on speaking to you for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, and then having the Q&A. Like I said, we're thrilled that you're thinking of joining us. We want to give you some key information, but there's further details about our amazing courses, our exciting faculty on our website as well, and that information's up there on the slide. We know that this is a big decision for you. We know that the pandemic situation has put further, sort of stress and confusion into it all. As you think about the transition from high school to university, we're here to reassure some of those, concerns and answer any questions, and generally just hopefully leave you with a sense of why we think our program is so great. Next slide, please, Sarah. As I said, I'm the undergraduate supervisor, and Sarah is our undergrad administrator. Our emails are up there as well. If you have any further questions after this presentation, please do reach out. We're happy to communicate as well after this. I want to, before we get into the details, I want to bring in our chair, Bettina. We're really lucky to have her at the helm of our program. She's been with the department for a number of years. She's seen it all. She's committed to undergraduate students like yourself, and has been an amazing teacher. And so I want to turn it over just for a couple of minutes to Bettina, our chair, to welcome you all. Bettina.
Thank you, Sean, for that really kind introduction. I'm so excited to be with you today because I am so proud of the department that I have the privilege of leading. Honestly, if I can tell you one thing about the study of law and legal studies, it's that law, as we say, is not just for lawyers. There are so many things about law that I can guarantee you, whatever your personal interests are, they intersect with the law in some way. I always like to begin these talks by telling people that if you parked your car somewhere today, if you rode the bus, those are all legal transactions. If you bought a coffee, that's a legal transaction. Law is really everywhere. And understanding the law and what we can do with it is really part of understanding how we can be good citizens in our society. And that's one of the things that we take really seriously in the Department of Law and Legal Studies. And we are the oldest and largest legal studies department in Canada. We have a history that goes back over 50 years now. And we are very proud of the fact that we've always taken an open, equitable, and interdisciplinary approach to law and legal studies. Now, you may be wondering what all those words mean, and that's fair enough. I think we're going to explain them throughout this talk today. But open meaning that we're open to new ideas. Equitable meaning that we're committed to fairness and social justice. And when we talk about interdisciplinary, it means that you're going to learn from people who are both legal practitioners, but also people who have backgrounds in history, in anthropology, in different areas of study and thinking that intersect with law. And so you want to think about law and the study of law with us as kind of like a huge giant box. And you can ask different questions about the law. And that's what we do in our program. Any question that you have about how law works or why we would use the law in certain circumstances gets studied through this idea of law within society. And so I am going to turn it over to my wonderful team to continue this talk and explain to you further both what our program is, what you'll actually study, and how we go about studying it. But I am so pleased to hear that you're considering our department, and we really would love to see you next fall.
Thanks, Bettina. That was great. So, big picture, why study with us? Why do a degree in law and legal studies? We're cognizant that there's different programs and students come into university with different interests. And partly what we hope will happen in your undergraduate studies is you'll be exposed to new ideas and courses and areas of inquiry that will inspire you and spark, perhaps interest that you didn't even know you had before. But when you're planning your undergraduate studies, some highlights for our program that you'll want to keep in mind. As our chair noted, we are the oldest and largest undergrad program in law and legal studies, with the largest faculty of its kind in the country. What does that mean for you as students? That means more course options, for instance, on a range of important topics. And it also means an established reputation for the degree among future employers, for instance, potential postgraduate opportunities. Many of our students are interested long-term, potentially in law school as well afterwards. Another highlight, as was noted, is that we are truly interdisciplinary. Now, you might not know it as high school students, but that word gets thrown around a lot in academia. It's kind of popular right now. And I'm proud that our department is truly committed to that. And it means, as our chair noted, we explore law by looking at traditional legal sources like legislation and case law. You're going to learn skills on how to critically analyze a case, for instance, or apply the relevant provisions of a piece of legislation. But we also examine it not just from that doctrinal view, but also from a social view, the political context, the historical context, the power inequalities that led to the legislation being drafted as it was. And so our faculty bring that interdisciplinary perspective to the teaching that they engage in and to the research that they conduct. And so you're going to get people trained in sociology and in law and in critical race studies, for instance, international law. And all of that is going to benefit the types of courses and teaching experiences you'll have as an undergrad with us. We also have, in addition to our amazing courses, we have exciting internships, co-op programs, for instance, as well, exchange opportunities, and all of those give you real-world experience and connections that make your undergrad studies more meaningful, we hope, and also, on a practical sense, expand your connections for potential job opportunities and give you real-world experience with host organizations, for instance, if you're doing a work placement in your fourth year. And our students who are able to do those placements, for instance, they often report to us that it's some of the most meaningful time in their degrees. The people they meet, many of them are able to continue in employment afterwards, for instance. And people have a range of opportunities from NGOs to law firms to government departments, for instance. Another highlight when you're thinking about why studying with us would be that the degree at the end, after 3 or 4 years, and in the training in those years, it's going to give you transferable skills, and it's going to give you knowledge of law and legal studies in its social political context. And that's going to empower you, we hope, to pursue exciting careers or postgraduate study or law school study afterwards. So again, to summarize, an amazing variety of courses due to our history and size, the interdisciplinary approach, exciting opportunities like internships and co-op placements, and a degree that gives you transferable skills and knowledge for future opportunities. I'd also like to say sometimes this gets forgotten about in these practical calculations on planning for the future. But I know when I remember being an undergrad, for instance, what was really important to me as well, and I hear from other undergrad students who turn to me for questions or support. We have an amazing supportive learning environment. We have professors and staff who are passionate about what they do, and they are committed to student success. And I know Carleton is very proud of that, the reputation we have for supporting teaching, for supporting undergrad students. You won't just be a number, for instance, as you might hear from some of your older peers who have been at other larger universities, for instance, or other programs. I'm really proud of the student-centered learning environment that we bring in our department. So those are some of the highlights. I mentioned one of them being, okay, at the end of your 3 or 4 years, what can you do with it? And often parents have this question at these events. The students want to know the details of the program, and the parents sometimes want to know what their son or daughter can do afterwards. We have students who have built successful careers afterwards in a range of public and private areas. Many of our grads have exciting careers in government departments and agencies, especially federal government departments, because Ottawa is an amazing place to be for that kind of career. Students have built careers at courts at the federal and provincial level, educational institutions, media and information tech companies, NGOs, financial, insurance and property industries, healthcare, social support, public relations, among many others. In order to help empower students for future careers, we run popular alumni networking events to help students connect with successful graduates from our program and to get inspired about their own careers by listening to the amazing stories of some of our alumni. And it always inspires me and makes me happy to see that so many of our recent graduates, when we ask them, when we reach out to them, speaking to that sense of collegiality or excitement about our community, they're often willing to share their time and volunteer. They want to come back and connect with recent undergrads to help inspire them about their careers as well. So yeah, there's an amazing range of career paths at your future with a degree in law and legal studies. That's my excited big picture highlights and overview. I'm going to turn it over briefly to Sarah as well to discuss some of the details of the cool programs we offer, the different concentrations as well in our program.
Great, thanks, Sean. So Sean did talk about big picture, but he also did mention some of the areas that we offer when you are a student in our program. So I would say 3 things to think about are the concentrations that we offer, which are in business law, law, policy, and government, or transnational law and human rights. So the first 2 offer the opportunity to do co-op through the co-op office and get experience out in the real world while making money instead of getting course credit. So that's a very popular option, and business law is our most popular concentration, I think due to the courses, but also due to the opportunity that it affords it. And then law, policy, and government, another great one for co-op, and it really helps. Taking a concentration really helps narrow down your choices. Since we do offer about 70 different courses on the books, and to choose your courses each year can be a little bit of a challenge. So if you take a concentration, it helps narrow down that choice and really helps you focus in on a particular area of law. And then the third is the transnational law and human rights. So although it doesn't offer a co-op opportunity, it still is still a very popular option, and quite popular with our students and with our faculty who teach in that area. So if you don't take a concentration, which you don't have to, you can also just take a variety of courses in all areas of law and really see what you're interested in. And in that case, you can take a placement opportunity at the 4th year. We offer an opportunity to go out into the real world and earn course credit while working maybe in a law firm, or in a variety of areas. So it's really student driven, and they have the opportunity to choose what area they want to work in with the support of the faculty member in the department. Lastly, the international exchange options are wonderful through Carleton. Last time I checked, I think there was 175 partner institutions in over 35 countries. So I would say that gives you a huge variety to choose from, and allows you to just dip your toes in a different area of law through a different country, and just grow in that experience as well, seeing how it's done in another country. So I would say if anyone gets the opportunity to do that, that's one of the best things you can do for growth for yourself, and real world experience as well. The last thing I'll mention that isn't on the slide is I know there's a lot of pressure from students to pick the right program the first time. Once they pick that program and they get into it, they have to stay there. And that's not true here at Carleton. So you can start in our program, and maybe after taking some electives, maybe through criminology, you realize that criminology is an area that you'd really like to dig deeper in. That's okay. And the reverse is true. We have many students who start in criminology, and maybe many of you are already thinking of that option, who then later in their degree come to us because law really is the area they excel in, and the area they want to focus in on. So I would say out of all of this, I know there feels like a lot of pressure to pick the right core or the right program. Just know that if you come to us, you can try our program, try criminology, or try one of the others. And if it's not the right fit, you can always look at changing, and we can help walk you through that process as well. So I would say that's one of the great things about coming to Carleton. You're not stuck in a program if it's not the right fit. So back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Sarah. That's awesome. So you decided to join our program, which we hope you will. You're raring to go. I want to tell you what your first and second and third and fourth year might look like if you do decide to join us, and convey a bit of a sense of excitement over the different courses that you'd be able to take. What would they look like? Big picture, if you take anything away from today's talk, think of all the events in Canada. When you read the paper, you hear about different issues of concern. And internationally, you name it, we've got a course that's going to help you understand them, those issues and problems from a social, legal lens. Whether it's many of you might know that the important climate change talks were going on, for instance, recently. There's discussions in the newspapers around reform of our criminal justice system and the over-incarceration of certain groups in that system, for instance. There's ongoing concerns about social justice in Canada and internationally. Many of you will be aware of anti-racism protests that have occurred in the US and in Canada. Some of you might know that the US and its allies have withdrawn from Afghanistan recently. There's international context to that. Any issue you see out there, and this speaks to what our chair was noting about, even if you get a parking ticket or you buy a coffee, there's almost always a legal aspect to those events and to those transactions, and the different courses you're going to take here are going to help empower you to understand that legal context, or those different events and those different transactions. So in short, we've got a course for that. If you think about all those different issues and challenges. In first year, as you might imagine, you'll have an opportunity to take our overview courses, and we're really proud that our department prioritizes those courses being taught by experienced professors. For instance, we have world-renowned expert faculty who teach all the different years of our courses, but including even in our first year, which doesn't always happen in all programs, for instance, and also have the opportunity not only to be taught by world-renowned expert faculty, but also by impressive legal practitioners as well. And students often get a big kick out of hearing, the real world stories of the lawyers who are practicing these issues in courts, former judges, for instance. And so it's a nice blend of that faculty expertise and also practitioners as well. One example of an amazing faculty member who teaches some of our first year courses is Professor Jane Dixon. Her slide's up there on the presentation. She, symbolic of or represents our interdisciplinary approach to law and legal studies. Her expertise is in the area of criminology and First Nations, and also traditional justice. Another amazing prof that you'll have the opportunity to study with in your first year courses, for instance, is Professor Vincent Kasmirsky. He has won multiple awards for his inspiring teaching and commitment to student learning. His research examines how law promotes or excludes disabled people in society. And he is a really inspiring teacher that students often, are quite happy after they've taken courses with him. So those are some of the faculty, and we have others, of course, that will be teaching that you'd have the chance to hear from in your first year. More generally, next slide, please, Sarah. Again, once you get to second year, once you get to third year, once you get to fourth year, we have so many courses. We don't have time, and I don't want to go through them all here, but I want to give you a sense of the range and an exciting variety of topics. And the big picture message I want you to take away is we've got a course for that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, important climate change talks were occurring recently. We've got second and third year courses that deal with environmental issues, social justice, and human rights. For instance, some of you might know that one of the aspects of the climate change debates is the disproportionate effects it's going to have on developing countries and citizens, for instance. We have courses that are going to help you understand those dynamics. We've got second and third year courses on persons and property. As I mentioned earlier, the criminal justice system. I teach that course, for instance, and also key courses that help you understand the relationship between citizens in Canada and the state, the power of the state in a legal sense, both from a constitutional viewpoint, but also in that broader social and political context. I mentioned climate change, but next slide, Sarah, as well. Some of you who are interested perhaps in business, whether in Canada or in an international context, the popularity of the business law concentration speaks to that. Some of you might be aware that Canadian mining companies abroad are under increasing scrutiny for their impact of their practices on local populations, for instance. And some of that debate gets shaped through the lens of international legal arrangements, informal practices, corporate social responsibility debates, for instance. And so we've got business law courses that are going to give you the fundamental backgrounds on those issues, but also keep that critical analysis lens in mind as well. We've got business law courses on contracts, intellectual property, international trade regulation, employment law, law in the information society, the regulation of corporate crime, for instance, and international economic law. Also, an area close to my heart, international law, international criminal law, international human rights, for instance. Increasingly, Canada's domestic legal system shapes and is shaped by international legal considerations, international political considerations, for instance. We've got courses that are going to help you understand that. The recent creation of the International Criminal Court is a historical milestone that stems from the Nuremberg trials that occurred after World War II, for instance. We've got courses that explore the topic of international justice from a range of viewpoints. We've got courses on human rights, including regulating freedom of expression in Canada. That's a third-year course. Equality and discrimination, law and Aboriginal peoples, international human rights, law, disability, and society, for instance, and other exciting areas as well, including law of the environment, law of the family, the international law of armed conflict, and also immigration and refugee law as well. So again, don't expect you to remember all the details of those specific courses. What I want you to take away is a sense of that exciting range of topics that our courses address and how they're connected to real world issues, both here in Canada, but also globally as well. So that's my exciting summary for you about what your courses could look like over the next 3 or 4 years. But as I mentioned at the very beginning, we're cognizant that what students also care about as well is the kind of peer environment and learning environment they're going to be in. And so I'll turn over to Sarah to elaborate a little about that as well.
So back to the Carleton Law and Legal Studies Society. So that's a really active student group on campus, and or at least used to be on campus. I'm sure they'll be eager to get back, but virtually they're holding some of the same events that they used to. What they often help students do is prepare for LSAT. So if you're thinking of law school in the future, many of them are already studying for their LSATs to take the test to go on to law school, but they also do presentations, and they used to do field trips to go to law schools to ask the questions of the schools that they were really interested in. Another popular one, and you'll see at the picture at the bottom there, is the mooting tournament that the students are involved in, and that's where they get the opportunity to sort of argue a case at a court in front of real judges. And Carleton's actually been quite popular in how they've finished, or where they finished in that competition. So it's quite a big deal for the law students and the Carleton Law Society. So I would say if you are interested in joining us, that's a great opportunity to meet like-minded students outside of the classroom, and really just get a different perspective and really practice those skills that maybe you'll get to use in the future as well. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Sarah. That's wonderful. So we're coming near the end of the presentation. We want to make sure we save time for your questions. But before we wrap up, I did want to elaborate a little bit on some of our amazing faculty that we have that will be teaching the courses, to make that connection between the classes you'd be taking and the people you'd be taking it with. You know, as you're all cognizant, the pandemic has put a challenge into learning in many ways, but our faculty have adapted, and it speaks to their commitment to student learning at the amazing courses they're continuing to deliver. And I just want to flag some of them in an exciting way. We're very lucky to have recently welcomed Professor Danica Littlechild to our department. She has extensive experience practicing law and serving Indigenous people across Canada and also internationally. And so further to my observation about keeping in mind that law and legal studies occurs in a domestic context, but also in that global context. And Professor Littlechild's research engages with that nexus. This year, she is teaching a special topics course that's entitled Indigenous Relations, Ethics, and Law. We're really lucky to have her, and she's an amazing professor. We also have Professor Omnikhan, and her research focuses on cutting-edge topics on sexuality and gender and how they intersect with the law. And she's teaching a seminar course in 4th year on sexuality and the law. And seminar courses in 4th year allow students to explore issues in greater depth. You're often writing research essays, for instance, at that level. And so you are applying that critical analysis that you've been building up in prior years in a more in-depth way. Another amazing colleague and prof is Professor Cheryl Hamilton. She teaches both in the School of Journalism and Communication Studies, but then also in our Department of Law and Legal Studies. And her research demonstrates that interdisciplinary commitment that Bettina mentioned earlier and that I've been elaborating on. Professor Hamilton, she looks at legal personhood, but also how it intersects with media, law, gender, and technology. And this year she's teaching the third year intellectual property course that I mentioned earlier, and also freedom of expression. I encourage you to check out the bios of our faculty on our department website. We have an amazing range of people. We have a small selection up there just to convey the range of research and teaching and people's expertise. I'll just note a few highlights in no particular order, just because I'm aware of some of their teaching or research. We have Professor Atiya Hussain. Her research is guided by a fundamental interest in how race constitutes material reality. She's teaching courses on race and religion, and her research also examines that topic from the perspective of Muslims in the U.S. We've also got Professor Megan Gaucher as well. She's an expert on immigration law, for instance, and debates about citizenship and family and belonging in the Canadian immigration context, and also how that interacts with immigration and refugee law policy and also political debates. Another amazing professor in our team is Professor Mohammed Hassan, and his research looks at toxic colonialism and the state's responsibility to regulate corporations. So I mentioned earlier that there's increasing scrutiny over the international impact of the actions of Canadian corporations abroad, for instance. And Professor Hassan's research examines some of those implications. Again, though, that's just a small sampling. We have an amazing range of 36 professors engaged in interdisciplinary research on law and legal studies with an amazing variety of approaches, both theoretical, methodological, for instance, as well. So again, that's just a highlight of our team here. So to wrap up, as I said at the beginning, we're so excited that you're thinking of joining us. We recognize you might have some questions, so we'd love to open that up for some discussion. If you do, we look forward to hopefully welcoming you next fall. We're here. Our faculty and staff are here for you as registration opens, for instance, as the term gets started, and through your years with us. As I said at the beginning, please feel free to reach out to me or Sarah if you have more specific questions. The main office email as well is available for general inquiries. With that, again, we hope you join us next year, and we want to open it up if there are some questions. So thank you very much. Our first question, how many students were admitted to the law program last year?
So I would have to go on averages for that question. I would say on average, we accept between 200 and 250 new first-year students.
Second question. Thanks, Sarah. If I want to work with autistic people, what concentration should I focus on? Thanks. That's a great question. I think I'd want to maybe chat, and Sarah and I would want to chat with a student, depending in order to ensure that career goals or future goals align with what they're taking in an undergraduate program. Just thinking right now on my feet, the most obvious resonance might be the transnational law and human rights concentration. But as Sarah also mentioned, many of our students don't pick a concentration. They take courses in a more general sense as well. But we've got courses, and I mentioned, for instance, Professor Kasmirsky's research focuses on both the inclusion and exclusion of people with disabilities from a socio-legal perspective.
And I should mention too, there's also a minor in disability studies. So if you are in the law program, you might be able to add the minor as well and really focus in that way.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a great point. Third question. For being an immigration officer, what concentration should I focus on? Again, I'd repeat what I said to the other question, that career planning and aligning that with particular undergraduate programs of study. We want to make sure that we're having perhaps more in-person discussions, because those are important decisions. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a range of courses that would help anyone interested in immigration, settlement, refugee law, whether in a Canadian context or internationally, help empower you to understand that topic. Again, my initial instinct, thinking on my feet, might be that the transnational law and human rights would overlap most closely. But it's also probably the case that students in the other two concentrations, people can't always predict, if they're interested in a career with the federal government, the department that they end up with is sometimes not the one that they first planned on, and that's an exciting thing. So I imagine that there are students in the other concentrations who also end up, for instance, in the relevant departments that deal with immigration and refugee topics. So another question, can I apply for internships during university, or do I have to apply now?
So depending what you mean by internships, but if you're referring to the one that we mentioned in our presentation, that there's a fourth year opportunity to do an internship, then that's something you would start looking at in your third year with us to basically apply and find the appropriate placement. So unless you mean the actual internship, that would be held elsewhere outside of the department, and that's more of a co-op. One of the focuses is co-op. So maybe if you have a follow-up question or a bit more detail, maybe that I can better answer your question.
Yeah, and Sarah, just to sort of piggyback or to add on what you're saying, that most students who do pursue our learning placement options, for instance, they do so in their later years of their undergraduate degree, in part because the knowledge that's been built up and the legal and analytical skills has been built up. Your students are then, they're able to get more out of a placement with an employer, for instance.
Right.
Thanks for that question. Were there any other issues, whether practical about courses or just about the student experience, or questions about next year?
Or points of clarification? Maybe there was something that maybe we didn't explain fully, or you need more details on?
Just checking the... Okay. So, Bettina, was there anything else? I don't think there's anything else we wanted to cover. I think we've covered everything we hope to. And thanks so much to everyone for sending out those questions. Often when students pose a question, there are other people as well who are wondering the same thing. So it's actually really helpful when people do ask issues that they're wondering about. Oh, we've got another one. Thanks so much. So this question is co-op available to all concentrations or only some?
Sure. So out of our 3 concentrations right now, co-op's only available to 2, which would be the business law and then the law, policy, and government. And that's a concentration is not something you have to pick in your first year either. You're welcome to join us as the law honors for your program without a concentration. And after your first year, you might have a better indication of a concentration you're interested in. If you'd like to add one, and then also to do the co-op as well. Those choices don't have to be made upon application.
All right. Well, thanks so much to everyone for those questions. A final call out if there are any other queries, small or large, we're here to answer them. Okay. So if everyone's questions have been answered, then I would just encourage you, as I mentioned earlier, please do reach out to us. Please do check our website to get more information. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We know you have options for the programs you're going to undertake in for undergrad studies, and so we do hope you join us, and we do think it would be an exciting decision to do so. So thank you as well to Sarah. Thank you so much, Bettina, and as well to the organizers of today's presentation, and to all of you, the audience members, students, and parents, for making time for this to get this important information. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.